So let's revisit gains from trade. As we talked about last class in our abbreviated 20-minute class with our abbreviated or at least conceptual trade game, we talked some about why trade creates value. Obviously, successful trade moves resources from lower to higher valued uses, and the gains from trade are, again, this is an analytic framework I find helpful if you want to think about why companies have succeeded. It's either because they have found a way to increase the gains to be had from trade or to decrease the costs of trade, thus permitting more trades to happen. So let's set the cost to one side for the moment. As we talked about last class, for most of human history, the reason why trade created value was different endowments. In other words, different amounts available, different starting amounts, and or different preferences. That's where most trade, the value from trade, happened. So again, how often do you think people have the same endowments and the same preferences? Almost never. But as we talked about last class, this is just really kind of for existing things. Most of the last 200 years of growth has been the result of something that we take for granted now, specialization. In other words, most of us understand that we are going to give up some things to focus on other things. And we may never know or learn how to fix a faucet. We may never know or learn how to fix an internal combustion engine or even how it works. This incidentally belies much of what we've pushed in terms of higher education, in terms of the gen eds. However, as we talked about at the beginning of the semester, yes, gen eds belie your ability to specialize, but hopefully they are actually part of your ability to specialize in information acquisition and analytic skills. So, historically, if you specialized, that was a recipe for disaster. That was a recipe for starvation. For most people, if you think about historically most agricultural families or most people who worked in towns, being hyper specialized meant you almost, right, you would struggle to survive. You would struggle to live. You'd struggle to feed your family. However, turns out that once the market gets big enough, because specialization is limited by the extent of the market. In other words, how big the market is determines how feasible it is to specialize. So, if you have a very small market, like I did growing up in Powderville, Montana, which was a population of 0, or in Bozeman at the time, which was also a relatively small population, specialization really wasn't, you had some specialization. In other words, you had some doctors, you had some lawyers, you had some teachers, and people who had specialized. However, very few people would be specialized in heart surgery. Why? Because you had a relatively small market. There weren't enough people to keep that going. And that's true today. If you go out to Sydney, Montana, there's probably a town doctor, but there's probably not an arthroscopic surgeon. Right? Same thing here at MSUB. I'm specialized in teaching economics. If I was over in Bozeman, which is a larger university, a larger market, it's a very good chance I would end up teaching specialized classes. My fields, probably my forte would be political economy, economic development, maybe law and economics. I don't teach any of those classes here. And I don't teach any of them because the market is actually small enough here that we have a certain degree of specialization, but not as much as we otherwise could if we had a really large market. Now, to some extent, the advent of online, which is what we're doing now, has possibly increased the extent of the market, which has increased people's ability to specialize. So behind here, I have some cases with a bunch of small metal miniatures from little packets, basically plastic fighting men and women. Those are produced by a company in Spain. There's one person who is specialized in doing just the art, and another person who is specialized in doing all of the background information for that game. In effect, because of the internet, because of the people spread out across the world, they've been able to specialize to a much higher degree. Now, of course, if we just had the internet but no ability to ship products, to ship goods and services, then this would be a different story. We wouldn't be able to tap into that.